Hi, so today I'm going to be taking a look at a RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate Coil Shock. That's quite a mouthful of a name. It just comes in this straightforward brown packaging, so let's get in and have a look. So the shock is sold just by itself, just the body. It doesn't actually come with the spring. You've just got the usual RockShox sticker, a little bit of paperwork. This is the clip for holding the spring onto the body. Just get the shock out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. So this doesn't come with any mounting hardware, so at the moment it just has the bare eyelet. It usually comes with a DU bush fitted, so this metal DU bush would sit in here, and then it has a low friction inner surface. Then you would just attach your normal mounting hardware. I'm going to be using something slightly different. And then further up you've got the Rebound, you see faster, slower, and then it's got a nice positive click to it, and the dial is knurled, plus it has spaces for you to use an Allen key if it's a little bit stiff. And then here's the bottom out bumper, fairly decent size on it. And then on the shaft you've got the sag indicators, and what happens is when you sit on, the bumper will move up, and then you can see what sag is at, similar to how the forks used to be. Moving further up, you've got the collar for tightening onto the spring. So you can see it's got a mark here, which is a minimum of 2, maximum of 5. That's for the preload. I'll show you that when I put the spring on. And you've obviously got the serial number. I forgot to mention this is a 205 by 65 trunnion mount. So as you see, it doesn't have an eyelet at the top. It actually mounts directly to the frame. Moving to the low speed compression dial, so similar to how it is on the new RockShox forks, you have an indicator mark on the actual body, and then you can just twist and you know exactly where you are on the setting. You just might as well take it away. And at the front here you've got the high speed compression circuit. So again, it's got a set mark, so you know where you are. This one you're going to actually need a tool for, so this is a 3mm Allen key. And then you would just twist. As you can see, you know where you are visually. No more guessing, you can actually see. And at the top here you've got a purple dial. This is for the adjustable hydraulic bottom out. So this is just to aid the bottoming out of the shock, so you can just add resistance to it. So it just makes the shock more progressive as it gets towards the end. Now the way it works is it's actually set 0 at the moment, which is fully counterclockwise, and then you just use a 3mm Allen key, and then you would just turn it. It's got nice positive clicks, depending on how much you need. It's a climb switch. It's nice and positive, it's nice and firm, you know when it's on. Some of them can be a little bit fiddly. I probably won't use that because I generally don't use them. I find they're more of a hindrance than anything. But I couldn't get this shock in this size without it. Good to take a look at the coil spring now. I'm going to be running the RockShox steel spring. So this is the 500 pound weight one, and then obviously in the right size is a 65mm stroke shock. These are cheap to get hold of. I've bought them as low as £30. The downside of these is that they are heavy. So I'm just going to fit the spring onto this now. So what you need to do is just make sure that the collar is wound all the way out, so right at the top of the threads. Then you just want to pull the bumper up, then you just slide the coil on. You need to make sure that your lower hardware will clear this, so I generally put the spring on before I put my lower hardware on, because most of them tend to stop the coil from fitting on. Then you just need to put the clip on. You can see it's got a little lip on it here, which actually fits in and then under the coil. To set the preload on this, what you need to do is, obviously you can see the coil is moving. You just need to wind the collar on until it touches and the spring isn't moving up and down. Right, so that's 0 preload. Then you just need to do 2 full turns. So we've got that there, so we want to go, that's 1, 2. So that's the minimum that I recommend for this. and then obviously you can go up to a maximum of 5. Here's the hardware that I'm going to be using for the lower eyelet. This is the new bearing upgrade kit that you can get for this shock. It came out with the Vivid Air. It's compatible with the Vivid Air and the coil. And what it is it's 2 bearings, and it mounts to an M8 or an 8mm axle, and then it's a 30mm spacing. So this is obviously only going to fit on a limited number of frames. The downside with this is that you need a special tool. RockShox sell it. There's the part number if you need it. And here's the kit. This is the bearing mount. So obviously you've got a bearing each side. And it's a 2-piece. It has some Loctite on, and it's threaded together. You see it's got steel centers, and it's got some little spacers. You just literally screw this together. So here's the tool, and the tool is obviously specifically shaped to fit around this. And then you just need to put the one side in, screw the other side in, mount one side in a vise, and then torque it up. Here's how it looks once it's actually installed. I feel like it's much smoother. Obviously it's bearings, so it's going to have bearings at the top and bottom now, because obviously the bearings are in the frame that I'm using, and then it's got bearings now in the eyelet. Here's what I was talking about, trying to remove the coil once the hardware's on. So obviously I've got the bearing on, but you cannot get the spring off because it's actually getting in the way. So always fit your spring before you put your lower hardware on. Just going to do a quick check of the weight. So here's the shock body, and then the clip for the spring. And then this is a 500-pound spring. And then put them together. And finally, here's the complete weight with the lower bearings fitted. I just wanted to talk about this shock in comparison with a couple of others. So, as you've seen, this certainly isn't the lightest, and it's certainly not the cheapest shock. It sort of sits in the middle. If you're looking for a more basic shock, I'd recommend the Mazzocchi Bomber CR. That's a really cheap shock. It's based on the Fox Van platform. It's just a rebadged Fox platform. The only downside with that is that you only have low-speed compression, and you also don't have any hydraulic bottom out. So if your frame's fairly linear, it may be problematic, and you might want to go for one with more adjustment. If you want something slightly more customizable, you might want to go for maybe the EXT or something like the Push 11.6, because then you can customize the valving, get it exactly how you want it to be. But I think the RockShox strikes a nice balance in the middle. It's got a decent amount of adjustment. It's fairly cheap in comparison. And the main penalty that you're going to pay for this is with the springs, which are really heavy. And the adjustment between the range of them is a little bit strange, so you can't quite get the sag that you'd want. In which case you might want to go for something like a Springdex spring, and then you can just fine-tune the adjustments in. Obviously springs are never exact. You can never get them dialed in as precise as, say, an air shock, but I much prefer the feel of a coil shock, even with the impreciseness of the springs. That was a look at the RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate Coil. If you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the box below. And if you got this far into the video, I do appreciate it, and thanks for watching.